of a change of investment philosophy. I could go on. So there's really no more important topic than advisor segmentation. And we're going to just quickly talk you through what we see now has to be the new view of advisor segmentation. And by the way, some firms in the innovations have really been focusing on this.
And this is really what we're saying by the handful of firms that have looking at during this storm what to do differently. These are really the three things that they are incorporating together.
Yeah. So let me walk you through them. And what you'll notice is the primary thing is that the ABC, based on production, is a backward-looking segmentation. And what we are really suggesting and beginning to see is a forward-looking segmentation. And we're looking at three components to that: reprofiling of the advisors, third-party data and predictive modeling, and cost of sales. Marianne is going to really talk a bit about reprofiling because that's a huge effort. But the fact is every advisor's practice has changed. And it is now time to reprofile the wholesalers who are out there and the internals on the phones. This is time to ask questions, and it's a great time to ask questions because we know there have been change. I do have to say that in the managed accounts solutions area, this is going to be an interesting piece because very often the advisors you deal with are such big players. There hasn't been a lot of profiling. The pot has been so big that, you could just take your 10% share of it and be very, very happy. So it's going to be interesting to see. Third-party data and predictive modeling, it's really coming of age. The firms that are able to integrate the data and get it into the hands of the wholesalers in a usable way are in terrific shape. And then last but not least, which we haven't thought about as an industry the way we really should, is cost of sales. Okay, it's the kind of advisor I want to talk to. I know it's the right person. What's it going to cost for me to put a wholesaler in the field and meet that person? So those are the three components. I wish we could dig into all three, but Marianne is really just going to dig into the reprofiling for us.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. There has never been really a better time. And if we look at the next slide, the reality is when we ride with wholesalers, there's been a reluctance to what we say reprofile because they've known them for a while. They don't want to start with a conversation that says, I never really asked you what your assets under management are. And there's obviously a very skillful way to do that. But now is the time because you don't want to spend a lot of repeat visits to that advisor. Advisors have had a makeover. Specifically, what they have now is a more demanding client. There are new questions that are happening. If you think about it, clients are interviewing advisors now. And they're about what makes them different, whether the client should stay. And at the end of the day, for both the advisor as well as the wholesaler, those who communicate best win, not necessarily about the numbers. And so I will say that the reprofiling thing, and it's a very it's a real skill. But if you add to that the reprofiling, the investment in CRM, and so the tool is there. Firms have made a huge investment. They've made strides, and what we have to say is between last year and this year, we've seen a mega movement towards actual input of data. And it's a frustration to many firms, but they are moving forward.
Well, also, we haven't really seen a slowdown in the CRM implementation. No, this was one of the things that did not get thrown overboard.
No.
People tried to stick with moving forward with the CRM. But Marianne, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But here's the deal. The firms that are really making some strides are trying to integrate that third-party data in there so that it is easy for wholesalers to use. In fact, we've talked to a couple of firms who have right at the top of their organization a strategy person that actually melds together all this data and makes it easy for the wholesaler to then incorporate it into a sales conversation. But you put those two together and you look at actually how the conversation is executed. And something as simple as the questions that need to be asked need to be very different now. And you look at the questions there on the right as just three examples that are timely questions that are very different from tell me about your business. Has the market downturn impacted? How has the market downturn impacted your practice? You really do need to know whether they're gaining or losing clients. And your thoughts on asset allocation, it really impacts what you might suggest, and the cash on the sideline, which is a big, big deal now. When are they going to move it? How much is there? That kind of information makes for, do I come back to this advisor or not?
And also, I wish we'd put this up on the screen for you. Clearly, a question around managed account solutions would be appropriate for the folks we're talking with. Where do they fit into your future? I know how they fit in the past. Where do they fit into your future?
Absolutely, yeah. And, you know, you look at these questions, we teach reps to ask the fewest number of questions to get the most information. And you know what? It's hard. And the prep for that is hard. Would you ever go in front of a live paying audience, though, without a rehearsal or a prep? Even if you've done it 100 times, and that's where the rubber meets the road in front of the advisor. So let's look at a couple of things that are in the way. We've touched on some of these before. It's not too late to make some changes, but it is really important to acknowledge these and to work through them. The reality is many managers have grown up through the wholesaling ranks. And again, so that you got those beliefs there. Here's the data, though, that people may not be aware of. And this is actually from FRC's Advisor Insight, that face-to-face is preferred by 39% of the advisors that are out there. They did the survey in October of 2008. But coming up a large percentage, 28% of advisors that are out there prefer the phone. And in fact, they looked at those advisors who pursue primarily a fee-based business. They prefer email. And so there's implications there for how you structure your organization. The second thing there is, and again, as an aside, insiders will convey to us privately that the wholesalers, the externals in the organization sometimes hold all the cards. And managers are reluctant to rock the boat a bit now, and that's what I would be too, my top wholesaler. So behavioral change now is very difficult, and we think the sales managers underestimate that difficulty. I come from a background in research in behavioral modification. For a while, I worked with pigeons who were trained to peck at a light randomly. Some food would drop into their bowl, and they pecked themselves actually to death, no matter how long the period was in between food drops. And so we're going to suggest to you that that is actually the behavior that wholesalers go back to under stress, going back to what they knew. We talked about some of the issues around hybrids, and that is a confused thing. And I touched on the barriers to the behavioral change. So we're going to wrap up by saying don't waste this crisis. There are some common themes of those who have undergone a makeover. One is to agree on very specific definitions of segments to help wholesalers. And the second one is that wholesalers need support well beyond marching orders to feel confident in revamping their conversations, to reflect what advisors need now, but also how to have these conversations more effectively and efficiently. Can't afford to see advisors 5 to 7 times before they begin to buy. And there's a way to learn from the front runners about how to execute a hybrid strategy. We have lots more research on this that we'll be glad to share with you. In terms of rebuilding, we would suggest that they ask what rebuilding will do to profit margins and to advisor relationships. It takes a while to build trust with each wholesaler change in terms of their relationship with advisors. And I'm going to say if we learned anything in talking to all these companies, is that very few have specific definitions. They have them in their heads, but if you ask 3 different senior managers to say define their hybrid strategy, often we get 3 separate answers at a time when clear direction is critical.